There's a story I keep hearing. Different cities, different ages, different details, but the same basic arc. Someone leaves their partner, not because of betrayal, not because of abuse, not because of anything objectively wrong. They leave because things felt okay, just okay. Stable, reliable, present, but not exciting enough, not passionate enough, not the fantasy they thought they deserved. So they end it. They move out. They start their new life. And for a while, it feels like freedom. 6 months later, maybe a year, maybe 2, they see their ex again. And something's different. They look lighter. They're smiling. They're with someone new. Someone who looks at them the way they used to look at them. Before familiarity turned admiration into irritation. And something breaks inside. Because they thought their ex would be destroyed. They thought leaving would prove how much better they could do. Instead, their ex is fine. More than fine. And they're the one lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if they made a catastrophic mistake. Today we're talking about a pattern that's becoming impossible to ignore. People leaving good relationships. Not perfect relationships, but genuinely good, loyal, committed partnerships. And realizing too late that what they walked away from was better than anything waiting on the other side. This isn't about attacking anyone. This isn't about saying people shouldn't leave relationships. This is about understanding a specific psychological trap that destroys families and creates regret that lasts decades. Let's start with a foundation. How do you go from committing to someone to leaving them for reasons that, in hindsight, seem trivial? It begins with something we can call the familiarity devaluation effect. At the beginning, everything they do is wonderful. They bring you coffee, thoughtful. They plan a date, romantic. They remember your favorite restaurant, attentive. In the early phase, every gesture has weight. Every action registers. Every effort gets appreciated. Fast forward 5 years, 10 years. They're still doing all these things. Maybe even more. But now they're invisible. The coffee is there, but you don't notice who made it anymore. The date happens, but it doesn't impress. It's expected. The remembering is baseline. Of course they remember. The novelty is gone. The gestures that used to prove their love now only prove they're still doing what they've always done. And what they've always done doesn't create excitement. It creates nothing. This is the cruel paradox of consistency. The very reliability that makes someone a good long-term partner is what makes them seem boring. They're predictable. They're safe. They're there. And there starts to feel like stuck. You begin looking at them and seeing someone who isn't evolving, isn't changing, isn't surprising you anymore. Not because they're actually stagnating, but because consistency looks like stagnation when you're addicted to novelty. Let me describe what this looks like in real life. They come home from work. They ask about your day. They listen. They offer to help with dinner. They spend time with the kids. They fix what's broken. They handle the errands you mentioned. In the evening, they suggest watching something together. They reach for your hand. They tell you they love you. Then you go to bed. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And somewhere in that repetition, you start feeling trapped. Not because anything's wrong, but because nothing's dramatic. No intensity. No spontaneous romantic gestures like in movies. No grand decorations. No fights with passionate reconciliation after. Just quiet, steady, reliable love. Day after day, year after year. You start thinking, is this all there is? Is this what the rest of my life looks like? The same conversations. The same routines. The same person who does everything right, but doesn't make me feel like I did at 23 when everything was new. You're not asking if they're a good partner. You're asking if they're the partner you fantasize about. And the answer becomes increasingly, no. Now add social media. This is where everything accelerates. You open Instagram. You see curated highlight reels of other relationships, the surprise trips, the elaborate proposals, the flowers, the poems, the grand gestures. Where's that energy in your relationship? You compare your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlights, and your reliable, consistent partner who just took out the trash without being asked can't compete with that fantasy compilation. You post something vague, feeling unappreciated. The comments flood in. You deserve better. If they don't make you happy, leave. Life's too short to settle. Strangers who know nothing about your relationship, nothing about your partner, nothing about your history, encouraging you to destroy everything based on one post. You join online groups, relationship forums, places where people collectively complain about their disappointments. And the dominant narrative is, if you're not euphorically happy, leave. If they don't read your mind, leave. If you're bored, leave. Partnership should make you happy every single day. And if it doesn't, you're settling. The idea that relationships require work, that commitment means staying to the boring phases, to the difficult phases, to the phases when you're not in love, but still love them, that's considered outdated. Settling, a trap, so you start building a case, collecting evidence. They didn't respond enthusiastically enough when you talked about your day. Emotional neglect. They wanted quiet time after work instead of deep conversation. Avoidance. They don't plan surprise dates anymore. Not trying. Every normal human moment of imperfection becomes proof that they're not good enough, that you deserve more, that there's someone out there who would appreciate you in ways they don't. And here's what you don't realize. You're confusing stability with boredom. You're mistaking calm for indifference. You're interpreting their comfort with being themselves as lack of passion. You're looking at someone who loves you enough to stop performing, who feels secure enough in a relationship to just exist, and deciding that absence of performance means absence of feeling. Here's the expectation problem, because this is the engine behind everything. Modern culture has internalized a fantasy version of relationships. The constant courtship, the constant proof, the constant movie-worthy moments. Flowers disappear. Surprise trips just happen. Love declarations are poetry. Emotional attunement is telepathic. That's entertainment. That's fiction. But it's been adopted as a standard. When your real partner, working 50 hours a week, exhausted by logistics, deal with their own stress. When they don't behave like a rom-com protagonist, they're not failing at being a good partner. They're failing to fulfill the fantasy. You tell them you feel distant. They say, "Okay, what do you need from me?" That's a normal, reasonable response. But it's not the movie answer. In the movie, they'd know. They'd sense your pain and stage a grand gesture to fix everything. So their reasonable question feels like proof they don't understand you, don't really get you, don't love you the way you want to be loved. Nothing they do is wrong, but everything gets measured against an impossible standard. A standard from fiction, amplified by social media, validated by echo chambers of people telling each other they deserve movie-perfect love. So you make the decision. You leave, and for a while it feels right. The freedom is initially intoxicating. No one asking about dinner. No routines. No predictability. You can do what you want when you want. You're rediscovering yourself, living your truth. You start dating. And initially it's exciting. New people, new attention, new possibilities. The dates feel different because they're new. The conversations are interesting because they haven't been had yet. The attention feels validating because it's from someone who hasn't seen you at your worst, who doesn't know your stories, for whom you're still a mystery. But then reality intrudes. The exciting new person is exciting because they're unavailable. They're texting 3 other people. They're not looking for commitment. The dates are fun but shallow. The attention is abundant but superficial. You're drowning in options and starving for substance. You try finding someone like your ex, someone reliable, someone kind, someone who shows up. But the reliable ones, the ones who actually want commitment, they're not as exciting as the unstable ones. They're boring, like your ex was boring, and you just left boring. So you keep rotating through people who give you intensity but not stability, validation but not commitment, excitement but not security. And somewhere in this cycle, you start remembering your ex differently. The things that annoyed you, their predictability, their routines, their calm nature, you suddenly see through a different lens. They were predictable because they were reliable. They had routines because they were stable. They were calm because they were secure. All the things you accuse them of not being. Exciting, spontaneous, passionate. You now find in people who can't give you what they gave you effortlessly. Then you see the photo. Them with someone new. And that someone is smiling at them the way you used to before you started keeping score. And they're smiling back. They look happy. Not destroyed. Not broken. Not longing for you. Happy. That's the moment. The moment regret crashes in. Because you thought they needed you. You thought their life was you. You thought leaving would prove you were the prize they lost. But they're fine. They found someone who appreciates what they offer. Someone who doesn't measure them against impossible standards. Someone who values consistency over chaos. And that person gets the version of them you used to have before you took it for granted. Let me talk about what happens in your head now. You start reevaluating the relationship with new data. All the things they did that you stopped noticing. You see them now because you're comparing them to the people you've met since. And none of them do what they did. None of them show up the way they showed up. None of them love the way they loved. Quiet, consistent, without keeping score, without needing validation, without making a performance. You remember the coffee they made every morning. How they always asked if you needed anything before running errands. How they solved problems without demanding credit. How they just were there, always there, until they weren't, because you left. And now you're drowning in options, but none of them are good. You get attention, but it's empty. You date, but it's exhausting. You wanted intensity. You got instability. You wanted passion. You got chaos. You wanted someone better. You got worse. Again and again, worse. The regret isn't just missing them. It's realizing you destroyed something irreplaceable for reasons that seem stupid to you now. You left someone who loved you because they didn't love you the way movies pretend people do. You traded substance for sparkle, security for excitement, reality for fantasy. And the fantasy didn't deliver. Here's the core truth both sides need to hear. Relationships aren't about finding the perfect person. They're about choosing an imperfect person and building something anyway. It's work, daily work, unglamorous work, the work of seeing your partner when familiarity makes them invisible, the work of appreciating small gestures when they don't feel new anymore, the work of choosing commitment when excitement fades, the work of protecting what you've built when the grass looks greener elsewhere. People who succeed at this aren't more in love. They're more committed. They made a choice and they honor it. They honor it through the boring phases, through the disappointing phases, through the phases when they're not sure they married the right person. They honor it because they promised. And real promises don't depend on feelings. The regret I'm describing isn't exclusively anyone's. It's human, but currently it's accelerating in ways that are creating a generation of broken families, hurt children, and adults who destroyed something real while chasing something imagined. If you're with someone who's decent, not perfect, but decent, think very carefully before you leave. Think about what you're trading. Think about what you're destroying. Think about whether your reasons are real or manufactured by comparison, fantasy, and voices of strangers who don't live with the consequences of your choices. And if you're the person who was left who gave their best and it still wasn't enough, understand, it wasn't about you. It was about their inability to recognize the value of what they had before they lost it. You can't fix that. You can only build yourself into someone who doesn't repeat that mistake. Someone who chooses a partner who already knows your worth, who values consistency, who's done with fantasies and ready for reality. The grass isn't greener. It's just different grass. And different grass still needs to be mowed.